way back to Texas, Dad and I stopped at Meteor Crater, Arizona. Very interesting place. The last time I had passed through Arizona on my way back to Texas, I had stopped and explored the petrified forest and some other places. But let's see what we find here. When I first stepped into the facility, the first thing I see is a large space capsule. Why am I seeing this here in the middle of an Arizona desert? So, reinforcing the NASA message of the Meteor Crater site is now a statue of an astronaut. Are they trying to tell me that the lunar walk was actually filmed in Arizona? Why is this here? Entering the building, you see this huge Meteor Crater banner with the NASA images on the bottom. The name Meteor Crater also reinforces that this is a site connected to space. A gigantic rock supposed to be from space is on display with a sign reading that Meteor Crater is the first proven meteor crater on Earth. How did they prove that? As I walk deeper and deeper into the complex, I am steadily bombarded with asteroids, meteorites, NASA imagery, and anecdotes explaining the astronomical import of the site. A movie that plays 3 times a day draws you in with a sign reading "Collision, you can help save the Earth." Before I can even get to an observation deck or go outside along the rim of the crater, which was the whole reason I was there, I have to walk through a museum-like display in the building. It is packed with all of the scientific theory of meteorites, asteroids, and comets. Models of the heliocentric solar system explain with CGI graphics how this crater appeared in Arizona. I am overwhelmed with NASA charts, diagrams, and old photos of giant rocks said to be from space. A curious illustration from 1751 in Croatia actually shows that it was believed then that a meteorite was a piece of the dome falling down. There are photos and data about the Tunguska event of 1908 and claims it was a meteorite. But as I have shown on my channel, the sky object turned 2 times in the sky over Russia before detonating over Siberia. It was certainly not a meteorite. Before you are allowed to actually personally lay eyes on the crater, you are bombarded with catchy and flashy videos of the crater with text, imagery, and audio of meteorites and astronomical theory. The presentations explain that the meteorite actually disintegrated upon impact. The museum goes to great lengths to portray almost every crater in the world as meteoric in origin. However, it actually admits that some are volcanic. But the place makes you actually have to lift panels to see this admission. Finally, I get to a window to see the crater with my own eyes, but only after I have been bombarded with the information. Very expensive and professional displays telling me that the crater was caused by a rock that fell from space and vaporized. It's a little unusual that the proof that the crater is meteoric in origin comes from the conclusions of a uniformitarian trained scientist who decided it was a space rock in the year 1905. And then the display shows me a large telescope. Of course, because the prop proves that a space rock made this crater. The Meteor Crater Museum display is complete overkill. I felt as though the meteor saturations were not genuine, that I'm being groomed to conclude what the uniformitarians want me to see when I finally go outside and look down into the crater. It is very telling that other theories are shelved and not explored. Meteorite is the fact, and we are not allowed to conclude otherwise. The display gets even more desperate to convey the space aspect of the crater site by showing Apollo 11 astronauts and the moon. Lunar data, moonwalks, capsules, lunar rover, and astronomical data in theory, all laid out in display after display after display, as if they are connected in some way to this crater in the Arizona desert. They lay it on thick that meteorites also ended the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. Total crap, uniformitarian dating. Then there is a cherry-picked quote from a uniformitarian astronomer placed twice on the wall. They don't want you to miss it. Dr. Eugene Shoemaker. And he said, "I had a personal goal that inspired me to begin studying craters on the Earth. I wanted to be the first geologist to the moon." Excellent quote. And it very expertly bridges the idea of the Arizona crater to the idea of space. It is indeed interesting that they would cite Dr. Shoemaker, for it was the comet in 1994, according to uniformitarians, that comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 was hit with a flux tube blast from Jupiter when both magnetic fields came into contact. And this electrical discharge fractured the comet into 21 gigantic pieces that then all slammed into the surface of Jupiter. This is allegedly caught on film, and NASA has provided us CGI photos or images of the detonations. So to quote him is very interesting because the flux tube blast could also account for the origin of craters in our world. In my own chronicon, I provide 2 years that we have in the ancient world documented for when these massive electrical discharges destroyed whole areas of the world. Actually, there's 3 dates. The first one is 1899 BC. Known better as the Babel dispersion. Flux tube bolts vaporized and vitrified whole cities and fortresses. Then there was 1299 BC, or excuse me, 1229 BC, and it was written by the Greeks. It happened during the last year of the Trojan War. Then we have the year 713 BC, where a flux tube discharged from the sky when the sun retrograded 10 degrees. The sun went backwards 10 degrees in the sky. At the exact same time that an electrical discharge vaporized 185,000 Assyrian soldiers, all wearing metal armor, a long moving antenna. So, flux tube discharges are in the historical record, they're in the traditional record, and now they are scientifically documented. So to ignore them in the context of the craters is highly unusual. Because this site here is 100% pushing the meteorite theory. There just isn't a viable reason why submarine volcano, undersea volcano, caldera, similar to the formation of the Archaix structure in the Sahara Desert, which was formed under high pressure underneath a sea. That's what the Sahara Desert used to be. Why this is just so automatically dismissed. And everything is just completely biased toward a rock falling from space. But let's go outside and see exactly what we see. So here is Meteor Crater, Arizona. By the time I actually got to go outside on the observation platform and shoot this footage, I've already endured psychological manipulation. I've been groomed. I mean, the laying out of props, it just influences me to examine the evidence under filters that they provided. One of these psychological techniques is priming. This refers to the process of exposing someone to a stimulus that influences their response to a subsequent stimulus, often without them even being aware of it. And this is what has happened to many people who have come to the crater. By the time they did what I'm doing now, looking at the crater, they have already been conditioned to accept certain things to be true. It's cognitive bias. It's really various cognitive biases can be at play when someone is influenced by prior information or context. So, it's also confirmation bias, where one favors information that confirms pre-existing beliefs. I mean, those who already buy into the meteorite theory would go through this facility before they can even see the crater and get all this positive reinforcement. It's there. So by the time that, it's such a mental trap. There's all kinds of different psychological manipulation techniques that this facility used. Anchoring bias. You ever heard of that one? Anchoring bias. It's where initial information serves as a reference point for subsequent judgments. Guys, the power of suggestion is immense. The power of suggestion is terrible. I'm going to show you more of it before the end of this video because they start conditioning us at a very, very young age to accept these things to be true, when all the evidence is to the contrary. This is a mountain, guys. This is something you need to understand. Meteor crater is not, the rest of the, for miles and miles and miles, it's flat terrain. It's flat terrain. The only mountain for many, many miles is the edge of Meteor crater. And that's just, I don't know. It doesn't fit the evidence of a rock falling from the sky. Why is there a mountain here? In the middle of nowhere, not close to any other mountains. The very edge, just one part of it, just the very edge is a mountain. So yeah, these techniques, these weight manipulators, weight manipulation involves manipulating the weight or importance given to evidence. It kind of makes a jury accord more or less weight to certain pieces of evidence than is logically justified. So I went down. There's different levels of observation platforms, and as you can see, I went down and I'm looking at the stratigraphy along the edge. Okay, so it's very obvious to me there's nothing vitrified here. Pay attention. There is nothing vitrified here, nor are any of the rock samples they provide in the museum show evidence of vitrification. Vitrification is something that you would expect to see. You would expect to see this vitrification if this was a rock from space. It would have literally turned to glass, whole parts of, pieces of rock. And this place was actually found. Oh, get this. It was first surveyed in 1903. How do you figure that one out? And in 1905, this guy concludes that he found proof that this was a rock from space in 1905. Yeah, guys, it's another one of these state historic sites that after 1902 just suddenly appears. You guys know I'm not gonna go into detail about 1902. You just need to understand that what you're looking at here is a bowl, no vitrification, none of the burning you would expect to see from a molten event, because that's what it would have been. It would have been a molten event. So I'm at the edge. I'm at the top edge because this is a mountain, guys. I'm on the top of a mountain looking down into the crater. The mountain still goes up for even higher. Yeah, I'm not just on the crater edge. I'm on a mountain, guys. What's really interesting is there's a sign here. I'll be showing a sign pretty soon. This is like the midway. There's two observation decks lower than this, and there's this one, and there's one high up at the top of the mountain. There it is, Moon Mountain Telescope. They even named it for you, Moon Mountain Telescope. Why would you call it Moon Mountain unless you were trying to reinforce something? Look at the height, look at the elevation. The land is flat. This meteor crater is in the middle of a flat plain. All right, what is this mountain doing here? If this rock fell from space, excavated this whole area out, the blast radius would have sent everything flying in all different directions. The inertial effect would have cleared out the crater from debris, detritus, errata, and yet it didn't affect this mountain. The mountain's just right here where you can look down into it. So it's really unusual to me that something so obvious is just completely ignored. Here I am at the top of the mountain. What is obvious to me is that geologists have already published that Arizona used to be underwater. It used to be a sea. I'm at the top of the mountain now, looking down into the crater. I'm at a great height. I had to walk all the way up here. I'm still not all the way at the top. There's a platform I can go stand on higher than this, but yeah, I'm looking down on the facility and the buildings. I'm looking, if Arizona was completely underwater in a subsurface, internal pressure, because a sea creates pressure. If a volcanic eruption or a gas eruption had happened undersea like they happen all the time, then naturally, after the detonation, it would create a hollow that would be filled. Space abhors a vacuum. It will be filled by the sea. It will excavate out just like you see here. No burning, no evidence of vitrification, no molten rock, because all of this was underwater. Every bit of this was underwater. I've done prior presentations driving through New Mexico and Arizona and showing you guys all the evidence that this entire area was underwater, and it wasn't that long ago. Just wasn't that long ago, guys. Here's a picture looking down at the facility. Here's just a photo of me, just being me, at the top of the mountain. There's the crater. It's a pretty good view of the crater. There's my van in the parking lot from the top of the mountain. Here I am exploring right here, guys. You need to understand, I got my explorer's cap on because as soon as I left the facility, and it takes you through the gift shop and you see nothing but NASA stuff. More reinforcement. You go right through the gift shop, walk right into a NASA store. Everything, badges, medallions, everything, Space Force, all these things are in here. It's like, why? What's going on here? I don't understand. Meteor Crater, Arizona, straight out of space. I walked through the entire gift shop. I'm like, wow. So they saturate you going in with all the NASA material, and then they saturate you when you leave, going through the gift shop. Look at this, toys. Oh, here's two little meteorites, as if they have anything to do with Meteor Crater. Look at this. International Space Station, all kinds of NASA stuff. Doesn't have anything to do with the crater right here. Nothing. Here's the book that they sell about the guys that determined this was a space rock. Everything in here for sale is space orientated. Yeah, calderas, under subterranean volcanic, all the toys. This is the conditioning begins very young. All the toys for kids, they're all in here. Yeah, it's crazy. It's just crazy. Mars mission. Oh, there's the reinforcement on the dinosaur. 65 million years ago, rock from space. The conditioning is real. Here's Meteor Crater. They're even identifying aliens. Here's your little ET dolls. What are ETs having anything to do? There's ET right there. What's he got to do with the Meteor Crater? Help me figure that one out. Just don't know. So here's the location of Meteor Crater, Arizona. This unusual place is in the middle of a wasteland that looks like it's been destroyed. Arizona and New Mexico were all an inland sea. And this is according to the Uniformitarians themselves. So it's, to me, this is nothing but a subterranean volcano that detonated underwater. Meteor Crater is actually less than 100 miles from the Petrified Forest National Park. It's less than 100 miles from an entire forest that petrified. It is also less than 100 miles from parts of the Grand Canyon, which is 275 miles long. The Grand Canyon and Petrified Park and Petrified Forest. So we have three geological anomalies here. Actually, geographical anomalies as well. Three of them all in the same area, in the same topography. But even more so, less than 100 miles away is another crater that is called Sunset Crater that is admitted to be a volcano because they cannot deny the evidence. And then when you look at the concentrations of volcanoes on the map, you can't help but notice that Nevada and New Mexico area have high concentrations of ancient volcanoes. So, taking all the information under consideration and the epic proportion of suggestion provided by the facility to get you to believe it's a space rock, I'm going to have to conclude my own personal opinion is that this area was a sea. Volcanoes erupted underwater and created this caldera, this structure here. It's no different than the Archaix structure. You know, many of these guys, man, like Jimmy Corsetti, trying to tell you that the Archaix structure is Atlantis. It's a salt dome. It's a series of salt domes of different sizes from different volcanic eruptions that all occurred underwater. What is the Sahara? It's an ancient sea. What is Arizona and New Mexico? It's an ancient sea. It's ridiculous, guys, what we have been led to believe.